All right, we are live. Hi, moms and dads. How are you? This is Monica here with the best interest of the parent, and I am going live on a very important topic. We're going to be talking about the American with Disabilities Act, and this is my favorite thing in the whole world. If you've been following me long enough, you'll know that I'm just pretty much obsessed with the ADA. I was an ADA advocate for 5 years on and off. I did take a little time off to have my two daughters, but I discontinued almost 5 years to the day that I started. And just being an ADA advocate has given me so much insight into how the court operates and watching case after case of botched cases after case. And it really, I was a free advocate for I think like the first 3 years, and then I became a paid advocate after a period of time after I went and got some training. Like I went and got some official training in 2018. So what I've seen, what I've witnessed, I'm so grateful for those experiences. And I want to, and that actually, all that stuff actually inspired me to do private coaching. So it was really like my ADA advocacy that started this whole ball rolling. And then I started private coaching, and then I went on to making digital courses. And speaking of digital courses, if you're interested in learning about my digital course, there is an information session tomorrow. I also call it a masterclass. So if you see that term, that's why. It's tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern time, and also Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And these are live events. So you could show up and bring some popcorn, and you're going to get a free gift automatically just for signing up. So do come and witness this event. I only hold these once a month. So come on and join us, and you just learn more about the course that way. But what I do with the course, with my private coaching, with my workshops, and also these live streams that I do weekly, is I help parents develop roadmaps to healing and empowerment so they can conquer their courtroom saboteurs, the many, many people in your court case that are draining you and bullying you and beating you up really badly. And we're going to actually talk about that tonight, because I have a question that came in from a parent who's experiencing all of the above. And the trick is to start embodying an activist mindset as soon as possible. As soon as you realize, as soon as you get to that like 2 to 3 year mark in your case where you realize that the system is corrupt, that is a sweet spot. I'll tell you why in a minute. The sweet spot is 2 to 3 years into your case. That is when you're far enough into your case to know that the system is effed up, but not so far along into your case that you have unknowingly given away all your rights. You've unknowingly just, you didn't appeal when you could have, you didn't object when you could have. Like when you get to a certain point, it's harder to come back from that. And also cognitively, physically, spiritually, socially, it changes your social circles. It changes the people who you interact with. And psychologically, you start to break down after like probably the 4 to 5 year mark, in my opinion. This is just what I've seen historically with clients. There were certain clients that I had to turn away because their trauma was too deep, and I'm not trauma informed, so I had to refer them out. And then there's parents that are like 2 years in that are malleable, and they're eager to learn because they're not so far deep in the abyss of corruption. They're still treading water. They still have some assets left. They still have some emotional capacity left to continue to fight, but they know enough about the case that or they know enough about the system that they know it's corrupt and that they need help. So the 2 to 3 year mark is a sweet spot. And what you need to do is you need to embody an activist mindset so that you can flip this dynamic around, and you become the leader in your case. You become the driver of the bus. You become that thing that everybody else has to respond to, instead of the other way around. Instead of you like being reactive and like being like, oh, my ex is doing this thing, I have to go do something about it now. You become proactive. You start being the one to file the first motion. You start to frame the arguments, and then other people have to start responding to you. So you take a more dominant role in your case, and you end up serving as a role model for your children when you take this energy on. Okay. So, okay. Whew. I feel like I didn't breathe when I was describing all that, because like the ADA, I love the ADA, and we're going to talk about this. And I get so excited. Like even in my course, like it's all like recorded and edited, but even in my course, I kind of yell a little bit, and I'm like, oh, sorry. So, so I should have brought some water, but okay, I'm going to try not to get excited because I love the ADA. And let me tell you why. Okay. So like I said, for 5 years, I watched parents use the ADA because I was their advocate. So they were using the ADA, and it shifts things so much. And I don't have time to go into it now, but I'm going to link my ADA course into the description here. It's $27. You could get through the whole thing in an hour. You get PDF printouts to use as cheat sheets. You just learn so much. It's such an amazing workshop. I love that workshop. It's my baby. And I love the ADA because I'm being completely honest here. I have not yet seen a parent lose on the ADA aspect. So like I have never seen a parent, how do I explain this? I have never seen a parent use the ADA and regret it. You know, I've never seen a parent use their rights under the American with Disabilities Act and say, "Oh my God, I wish I never did that." And I have a 100%, like, who else can say they have a 100% success rate with what they've seen happen when a parent uses the American with Disabilities Act? And I've been doing this for 5 years. It's not like I just started this like 2 months ago and like 3 people got results. Historically, I have seen social workers back off, like when I do like a DCF or CPS type of situation with the American with Disabilities Act, when I serve as their advocate. I have seen social workers back off. I've seen the list of charges toward the parent go from like 18 charges to like 2, simply because the parent started using their ADA rights. I have seen I think it was December, I worked with a dad who got out of co-parenting counseling using the ADA. Was it February? A mom, I don't remember the details. I have to have the notes in front of me, but I had a mom that I worked with in February use the ADA, and it was extraordinary because it made the other attorney back off a little bit. So it takes a lot of the burn out of your case when you're using the ADA. This is just what I've seen. I can't be like, oh, this is going to be predictable for the rest of your life. This is just the experience I've had. And the best part about the ADA is the ADA is federal law. So it applies in all 50 states. So it's not like if you're in Montana, like, oh, what works in Connecticut might not work in Montana. No, that's not true. Like, the federal laws apply equally everywhere to everybody. So I gotta stop. I gotta slow down. All right, I'll talk about this for the rest of my life. Let me just open up the question here. It's a little bit complex, but the thing is, I think all of you guys have experienced some or all of these issues. Okay. So I'm not going to read the question word for word. I'm going to leave out a lot of the revealing details, even though this parent lovingly gave me permission to share this, which is so wonderful. I love when you guys have questions and you give me permission to share. So let me just summarize what's happening. So I'm like 90% sure that this parent here is not yet divorced. So let me go off on another tiny tangent. If you're not yet divorced, you are in an extraordinary position leverage-wise. A, you have not lost any rights yet. Okay. No one has taken anything from you. B, like the case is still, there's a lot of plasticity in your case. Like nothing has happened yet, really. If you're still going through your divorce, even if you're on a temporary order, like temporary supervised visitation, there's a lot of plasticity where nothing's been set in stone. So the judge can't really use status quo as much to solidify a final order. And also, when a parent who hasn't been divorced yet seeks me out and gets my help, they're like, you guys are like unicorns, because usually the parent doesn't find me until they're 3 years in, and then they have to undo a lot of back stuff, and they have to deal with the fact that their health is breaking down. When you're brand new to divorce and family court, you have so much advantage because you have a lot of leverage. You have not lost any rights. You have not, you haven't been to trial yet, so nothing's been adjudicated really. And if you're learning at this stage, you have a leg up on like 20 million other parents, literally 20 million. I'm not exaggerating. I believe there's 20 million parents walking around to this day without their children as visitors, and so the majority of those 20 million parents just relied on their attorney for help. And oftentimes the parent will find me because they're broke. They've spent all their money on an attorney. But there's kind of an advantage in a weird, twisted way to having all your money taken, because then you're kind of forced to DIY. You're forced, and when you're taking it on as your own advocate, then you're forced to learn. It's kind of like you're going to learn how to swim faster in a pool than in a bathtub. So if you've if you run out of money, if you had only 20 grand and you lost it all in 8 months, which is pretty typical, and you're like, oh crap, I lost all my money, I got to figure something out. That's actually not a bad thing. I mean, it's like when people run out of food and they have to start growing food and they have to learn how to be gardeners. It's there's some value there. And so it seems like parents are like, oh, I'm broke. They have this defeatist mindset. But if you're a year in and you haven't had a trial yet and you're trying to get help, you're in a beautiful position. Okay, so let me shut up now. Let me get to the actual question. So I'm pretty sure this parent is not yet divorced because there is an order that she has to sell her home. And unfortunately for this parent who wrote this question, and I'm not good with money laws, like financial laws, like when a judge orders the sale of your home. I am working with a dad who's in the same position that you're in. He's not divorced yet, and there's a housing thing happening. What I would do, and I don't know I think you're in Massachusetts. So I would look up, you might be able to, even if you could get like a housing attorney cheap, like $300 or something, find out what rights you have under housing law, because Massachusetts is a very blue state. They're very tenant friendly, and you might have some housing rights. Even if you own the house, you might still have, like, I don't think a judge can make you homeless. And so family courts have wide discretion and they could do whatever the hell they want. Like literally, they use best interest of the child to slap on whatever order they want. And so if a judge is ordering you to sell your house and effectively ordering you to be homeless, you could try to contact a housing attorney, or if you're indigent, which you said you are, the court and the court declared you indigent. So this actually helps. So take that piece of paper. This is just what I would do. This is not legal advice. Like in family court, you have to think outside the box because these are not real laws. And so if you want to make it through family court, you almost have to rely on all the other laws that support us. So we have a First Amendment right to free speech. So apply that in family court. You have the right to not be discriminated against for having a disability. So apply that in family court. So what I think parents should do is not rely on the laws in family court, because there are no laws. There are laws. The law is the opinion of the judge. That's the law. And so if you could pull in other laws externally, housing laws, contract laws, your rights under the American with Disabilities Act, your rights as a patient, Patient's Bill of Rights, that could apply when you're being forced into a psych eval. Absolutely. When you're being forced into co-parenting therapy with a PhD therapist, you have rights under like informed consent, Patient's Bill of Rights. So when you pull in laws externally and forget about the family court laws don't exist. There are no laws. The laws are whatever the judge wants. Okay. Best interest of the child is a fake law. It's a law based on opinion. How can a law be based on an opinion? How is that's the only place where a law is based on someone else's opinion. Okay. You can't, that's not a law. That's no longer a law. The point of laws is that it's supposed to be black and white. That's so that everybody could follow them and understand them. Best interest of the child, you don't even learn what that law is until after the fact. You get your kids taken, you read the 20 pages of opinions, and you find out that the judge wanted this, that for the kids. And you find that out after the fact. And so that's not a law. You don't, it's like traffic laws. If you're driving down the highway, if you're driving for 20 years and then you get summoned to go to court for 20 years of laws that you broke, that you didn't know existed, but they're based on on the opinion of the traffic court judge, and then you get retroactively punished for all the traffic laws that you violated, and then you have to pay all these fines. That's called ex post facto punishment. And I got that term from Ron Palmer. So do look up Ron and Sherry Palmer if you want to learn more about that kind of stuff. Anyway, oh my gosh, guys, keep me in line here with this stuff. I'm going to be here all night. So let me shut up about all that. So if you're concerned that you're going to be homeless because this judge is forcing you to sell your house, find out if there are laws under your housing rights. And in Massachusetts, you have a lot of rights. Okay. I used to live in Massachusetts. Like, you have a lot of rights under housing laws because they like to, use that to your advantage, and find out if you can use any of those rights in your family law case to prevent you from being thrown out of your house. Okay. Okay. So let me move on. So, Oh my gosh, I am so sorry that I keep rambling. I hope this is useful. um, okay, so in a sense, the kids were being most likely sexually abused, and of course, like all other sexual abuse cases I've seen in family court, and this is not a mommy or daddy issue. This is whoever sexually abused the kids is most likely going to get the kids. Unfortunately, that's just how family law works. Family law is riddled with pedophilia. Like there, and I don't care. Look, this is going to be on YouTube. If you guys want to trash me on YouTube, if you want to share this to your buddy attorney, if you're watching this, because I get a lot of trolls on YouTube that think I'm a bad person. I'm going to tell you, if you work in family law, you are working among pedophiles. These people are obsessed with protecting the parent who's sexually abusing the kids, whether that's mom or dad. And so, of course, and like I said, I read like 4 lines and I was like, oh gosh, the minute sexual abuse comes up, the kids always go to the abuser. There's reasons for all that. I don't really cover all that, but other people do. There are other specialists that do cover this phenomenon. So, and dad has prior charges of, serious sexual abuse. So my question to you is, I don't want to get too deep into the details. I don't want to reveal your identity here, but with that charge, did that charge result in a conviction? Was that, was your ex convicted of that charge? Yes or no? Because it says he has prior charges, but was he ever convicted or was he acquitted? So if he was convicted, I don't really know what the laws are with that, but I would look into those laws and find out. I mean, because if you're convicted, you have to stay like 100 feet away from a school or like 100 yards from a school. So does that apply to your own children? I would just look into that because, like I said earlier, you cannot rely on family law at all. You have to look at the peripheral laws, look at all the other laws that are supposed to protect victims. And if there is a conviction, I would use that conviction as part of your strategy. And this is not legal advice. That's just what I would do. And so the big issue here is that this person who wrote to me was diagnosed by the other attorney as being mentally ill. Okay, so here's what I would do. Not legal advice. This is just what I would do. And you have a trial coming up soon. So nothing's happened yet. Like you're on a temporary parenting order, that really sucks. We'll get into that in a second. But you're going to be in a trial in a couple months. If you have someone alleging that you're mentally ill, send them a little thank you card because they just conferred disability protections onto you by the American with Disabilities Act. I would encourage you to take my workshop to learn more. Otherwise, this live stream is going to be ridiculously long. But they just conferred protections on you under the American with Disabilities Act. So send them a thank you card. Be thankful that they did that. Like I'm kind of joking, but not really. And if this person wants to diagnose you, this is just what I would do. And you try to like say motion to strike or something. And I can't give legal advice, but I would look up motion to strike and see if you could strike that testimony. And if the judge refuses to strike the testimony and allows that testimony to come in, this is just what I would do. I would say, well, then I want to call this person as a witness. I want to examine my accuser. I want to face my accuser. The attorney's accusing me of having a mental illness, and I had disability protections, blah, blah, blah. So you make sure you get those in. Okay, there is a way to do that. Take my workshop if you're interested, or you could book a private session with me if you really want to go into it. And it's kind of funny. I think like pretty much 100% of my private consultations are all about the American with Disabilities because that's the strongest thing we have in our arsenal. Like it's so powerful. So oh my God, I'm rambling. So, okay. I would just say, I want to examine this witness, this person saying this thing. I want to put them on the stand and examine them. And I've never seen a person examine an attorney, but that's your accuser. If the attorney is your accuser, then freaking examine them. Okay. And of course the judge will be like, oh no, we don't do that. Then you say, okay, well, I'm motion to strike again, Your Honor. They're saying shit about me. I want to examine them. I want to confront my accuser. Under the Fourth Amendment, we have the right to face our accused. Is it the Fourth Amendment or Fifth Amendment? I don't know. But you have the right to face your accuser. And if they say, no, that's only in criminal court, this is a Ron and Sherry thing, okay? read their books if you want more information. If they say, no, 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 you can't do that, that's criminal court, I would say, but see, my fundamental rights are at stake. They're using this thing to justify taking my children away from me, and that is protected under the First Amendment. So I demand more protections, and I want to face my accuser and just make a freaking fuss about it. I would just make a big ass freaking fuss and just make a fuss. Now in Connecticut, somebody's opinion that you have a mental illness is not admissible in the public record because opinions can only be delivered by expert witnesses. Okay. An attorney is not an expert witness. Your ex is not an expert witness. So if your ex is saying that you're crazy, then, you know, I would say motion to strike. And if they don't have, if they're just making an opinion, then their opinion isn't admissible. So much here. Like, they just conferred American with Disabilities Act protections on you. And you can cross-examine them. The judge won't let you cross-examine an attorney, but I would ask anyway, just to kind of make a point. And if your ex is issuing an opinion that you're crazy or that you have mental illness without any verifiable proof, then I would say, you know, this opinion is not admissible, not legal advice, but look up the Daubert standard, Daubert, and apply that and get help from an attorney to do that. Don't listen to this live stream and do it because I'm saying I'm a health coach. That's my training. I'm not a legal expert. This is just what I would do. This is what I have done in the past. Or say I'd like to recess for the day, or, you know, whatever, so I could go get an attorney to deal with these charges, because, you know, or you can ask for formal charges. You have a lot of options. You have a lot of options. You could say, if I'm being accused of being unfit, I would like a formal hearing. I would like formal charges filed against me. I want to see a list of charges. And you could even ask to have the entire case moved to another court, like criminal court, because if you're crazy, then they must think you're harming your children and you want to see charges. You know, there's a lot of things you could do. My course really goes so far into this. And in fact, that's interesting. If you actually enroll in the information session, you'll get a free gift. And the free gift itself covers that, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I don't recall exactly. So you have a lot of options here. I just gave you like 10 different things you could do. Let's see if there's anything I missed. There's a lot of stuff in this question, but I touched on the bigger things. What else can I discuss without revealing your identity? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more here. There's an else. Okay, we covered that. We covered selling your home, being forced to sell your home. Yeah, we talked about that. What else can I cover? Because I want to get to most of your question at least. Let's see here. Let me try this. Hang on. Because I feel like there was one more thing I wanted to talk about. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Absolutely. I absolutely want to cover this. So this parent that wrote to me is being put in a situation where she has to pay a lot of money for supervised visitation, and she's not able to afford it because she was declared indigent by the court. So she can't see her kids. So the judge effectively priced her out of the market to be a freaking parent. Like, you know, it's like pricing houses at $7 million when the average person in that city makes $50,000. So they're forcing homelessness, and, you know, there's a million houses available, but nobody could afford them. So the houses are sitting empty and there's people living in the streets. Like, when I read that's what my mind went to. It's like charging, you know, $50 for an apple when the minimum wage is $10 an hour. It's like the court has priced her children out of her life, you know, and that is abusive. That's freaking mafia ass court tactics 101. And the only thing the only response I have to that is that this might have happened, unfortunately, and I hate to say this, like, I hate to be the one to have to tell you this, because, like, it's bad news, you know. It's possible that this was considered consent. Okay. So this is the thing about family court, because you are fairly new to family court. Like I believe the initial filing was in 2019, and like the vast majority of parents don't know anything about the system when they're 2 years in at all. Like I didn't know a thing until I was 5 years in, and I had been through 2 trials. Like I didn't know anything. Um, it's a there's a possibility that you consented to this. And so what do I mean by that? Does that mean that you stood up and said, "Yes, Your Honor, I think that's a great idea. $600 an hour to see my kids"? Yes. I know you didn't do that. You didn't say that. But in family court, silence equals consent. So if someone asks the court for something outrageous, and the parent and the other parent doesn't object, and they're just sitting there like, "Holy crap, oh my God," and they're scared, because that's what happens, right? When your ex stands up and says, "I want this parent to see my child 1 hour a year," my ex has made requests like that, seriously. And so you get scared. You're like, "Oh my God, what do I do? What do I do?" And you start to panic. I've watched, I have literally sat through cases where the narcissist stands up and asks the court to incarcerate the other parent. And that is really scary to some parents, like to be incarcerated. I mean, probably most parents. And the other parent like stiffens up, and they lose their breath, and they're like, they literally have a panic attack. And so when the parent is in the middle of a panic attack, the last thing on their mind is how to craft an objection. "Objection, Your Honor." Da, 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 da. Like most parents can't think on their feet when the other side is asking for something so outrageous and so triggering. And so there's a possibility that this was considered consent, because in family court, silence equals consent. And whatever the parent is asking for is going to be granted unless the other parent objects. So it's like if you're going on a date with somebody and they start having sex with you and you're pushing them away and you're struggling and screaming, but you're not saying the word no, it's consent. If you're walking down the street and someone starts beating you with a baseball bat and you don't say, "Stop beating me with that baseball bat," and all you do is scream and like drop to the ground, that might be considered consent if you're going by family court standards. So if someone's abusing you in the system and you're not saying, "Stop abusing me. I don't deserve to be abused. I object to being abused. I object to being treated this way." And then unfortunately you have to have a legal basis for your objection for the most part. Then it's going to be considered consent. So what you could do is go back to that hearing where your ex asked for supervised visitation, because this was the request of your ex. Get the transcripts. Hopefully you can get them free. If you're indigent, tell the court that you're indigent. Say, "I'm indigent. I need these transcripts. How do I get these transcripts? What kind of form can I fill out to get these for free?" Like ask for shit for free. Like just keep asking for everything for free. And look at the transcripts to find out if you stood up and said objection. You probably don't even remember because it's such a traumatizing experience. And if you had an attorney, these freaking attorneys never object. And when did your attorney leave? Hang on one second. I think your attorney left in November of last year. Hang on. Let me take a look. Let's see. The attorney left in November of 2019. Okay. So that's probably when all the shit broke loose, because your ex saw that you were open for abuse because you didn't have an attorney protecting you. So when did the ex ask for the supervised visits? Yeah. Okay. Hang on. I believe that second hearing was 6 months ago. So you went like 8 months, 9 months without an attorney. And then your ex randomly asked for supervised visits, and then he got it. So there's a possibility that you didn't object. Unfortunately, it's too late. Like once a hearing takes place, you can't really undo it unless you appeal, but you often can't appeal a temporary order. The fact that you're not divorced yet, possibly, and that you have a trial in a couple of months, it's really hard to undo that. It is possible, writ of habeas, maybe. I'm not sure what you could use. I don't know anything about your case really, but what I would do is understand that you're still in a very, 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 very favorable position, even though it doesn't seem like it. You're indigent. You're being forced out of your home. You don't have an attorney. You're already on supervised visit, and your relationship with your children has been priced out of the market, and it feels like you have nothing. But understand that when you're this early on in your case, you have everything. You're in such a favorable position. So try to grab onto the benefits of where you're at. There are pros and cons. The cons to newer parents are that they don't know a whole lot about the system. They don't know their rights. They don't know, and then they have a hard time thinking on their feet because they're still in that shock phase, like that initial, like, holy crap, is this really happening? Is this really how family court works? And it's a shock to the conscience. And it's hard to get over that. I mean, I was numb for I think I was numb for about 3.5 years. So I don't expect any parent to understand stuff in the first couple of years. So I did answer quite a few of your questions. There's more, but you could take my workshop. You should absolutely come on to the info session tomorrow or Thursday. I don't think you're signed up for that, but I'll send an invite to you and learn about how you can reverse this tsunami of bullshit in your case, and you have options. You have a lot more options this early on than when you're 5, 7 years in, 8 years in. I'm 12 years in. I have no options. My case is so, what's that word I'm looking for? It's like so past the point of no return. It's just a solidified ball of nastiness. And I have a reputation in the system. So when they see me file motions, no, yeah, I have a stain on my record, so I can't go back to court. But let's see here. We don't have any. Do we have questions? So someone says Robin Murphy of Massachusetts Corruption and Exposed said that violations of ADA rights is considered a hate crime. That's very interesting. So she is a Robin Murphy. Is she an attorney? Is she what position does she hold? Because if she's like an attorney, I would love to see her make an opinion. And it's true. So I believe that I truly believe that family court survivors are going to be the next movement. People of color, you would think that they had their movement in the 60s, but now we're seeing it again with police brutality and stuff like that. And no matter where you sit on the fence, there are issues still with people of color, and disabled people have it way better now than they did 30 years ago, but there's still some issues, so there's still some residual issues in these populations that have historically been discriminated against. But family court parents have been abused really badly for a very, very long time with very, very, very little advocacy compared to the other groups. And so we're next on the wave. There is another question I actually want to answer, and it's similar to this. It's similar to this topic. So I'm going to pull that question up because I said I would address it today. So let me see here. Let me pull it up. Yeah, let me know who that person is, for the person that made the that comment about that Massachusetts person. Let me pull up my questions here. Okay. So let me pull this up. I think it's I wish I remember where okay, here it is. Perfect. So we had a question come in 2 days ago, and I told this wonderful mommy that I would address it. So this person said, I'm afraid to push for ADA protections because they might say I'm unfit due to my complex PTSD. Okay, great. And then someone else said, yes, my lawyers were afraid because they'd say I was not fit to parent. Despite what we think, it's unconstitutional. The courts will still do what they want. Okay, so, and I said I would address that. Okay, so every parent in the world is afraid. They're especially afraid to bring up the ADA because of that issue. If you bring up First Amendment rights, hey, I have the right to free speech, no one's going to say you're an unfit parent because you want to speak freely. If you say I have the right to not have, well, actually they do say that. Never mind. Let me use another example. If you say something like I have the right to be served with formal charges if I'm being accused, no one's going to, there's not much anyone could accuse you of. But when you say I want to use my rights under the American with Disabilities Act, there's a lot of panic that is associated with that. So here's a couple things. I have not yet seen a judge say, you're going to lose your kids because you're crazy. Now they do that, but not when the parent uses their American with Disabilities Act rights. We have a famous case, Skip versus Tittle in Connecticut, where a judge literally diagnosed a mom with a personality disorder on the bench as he was giving his final orders. And the mom couldn't use any American with Disabilities Act rights because she didn't know that that was a thing until the very, very, very end of her case. So that's another like sucker punch that judges use. They did that to me too. Like no one said anything about my mental state at all during my whole trial, the trial that had me lose my son. No one said anything about my mental state at all. Like nothing. It was like I think it was a 17-month litigation from start to finish. And then in the very final orders, the judge said I was mentally ill. And so the problem with that is that I could not use it. I didn't have the opportunity to use my rights at that point because that was not an issue until the very end. And so that's actually illegal for a lot of reasons. You have to, no, we won't get into that, but I did appeal that. Yeah, we're not going to get into that. So, but they can't do that basically. But so what I would do, and my clients do this, all of my clients do this. Well, the clients that need this kind of help do this. When somebody accuses you of being mentally ill, you have those rights whether you have the mental illness or not. So what I would do, if you're afraid of having this held against you, just calmly say on the record, or you could put it into your motions, that you can't be discriminated against for having any sort of disability, real or perceived, whether it's a real disability or just someone thinking that you have a disability, real or perceived, you cannot lose your kids on a real or perceived disability. You can only be punished for poor conduct. So if you want to learn more about that, do get my workshop. I will link my workshop into the description here. But so I would use my rights, and I have done this. Okay. So with my clients, I've never seen it not work. Use your rights. And then also, you want to preemptively cover yourself for when they do say, I'm going to take your kids away because you're crazy, So you could even say something like, this is not legal advice. This is just you could take what I'm saying, but put it in your own words. And you can say the thought that I have, how would I say it? Plaintiff can't be punished for having a real or perceived disability. Simply having a condition is not punishable, and it doesn't meet the standard needed to cut off a fundamental right, which is your right to your children. Another thing you could do, and I think all parents should do this, all of them, ask for a list of formal charges. Like, oh, they're alleging I'm unfit. I want a list of formal charges. I have never seen that not work. So definitely get the workshop. There's just so much information in that workshop. And if you take the actual course, the best interest of the parent, you get the workshop with that as well. So whether you take the full course or you take just the workshop, you're going to get that information. But yeah, it's definitely a common fear. I believe that even though it's a logical thing to be afraid of, I haven't yet seen a parent get punished, but I have seen parents lose their kids on having a disability. But when the parents aren't using their ADA rights, that's when I've seen it manifest into the parent losing their children. So anyway, let me see if I have any other questions on this live stream here. And I don't see any. So let's see. Yep. So we don't have any other questions. I appreciate you all coming on, and I hope to see you guys on the masterclass on either Wednesday or Thursday. I'll put the link to that into the description, and we will meet up next week. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.